Well, joining us now is Arizona Democratic Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari. She took part, one of the 6 Democratic lawmakers to do so in today's deposition, and is a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congresswoman, welcome. After listening to Wexner, do you believe him when he says he didn't know about Epstein's crimes? I mean, talk about his body language, the tone, whether he was belligerent at all about talking about this.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I came into this deposition with a very earnest mindset because somebody like Les Wexner undoubtedly has answers that will be helpful to us in this investigation. So I really was hopeful and am hopeful that he will try to provide those answers. Now, he has been respectful. There's been no belligerence whatsoever. But there has been a pattern of evasion, of responding by saying that he cannot recall, and by denying certain aspects of their relationship that just seems impossible. So, for example, we know that Les Wexner is somebody who had a decades-long financial relationship with Epstein, to the point where he handed over his power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein shortly after meeting him. And he, throughout his life, gave him hundreds of millions of dollars. They traveled together. But when he was asked today if he would consider Jeffrey Epstein a friend, or even if he would consider having a personal relationship with him, he outright said no. And to me, that is where it becomes very difficult to now trust Les Wexner as a credible witness, because that's not what history shows us, that's not what the reporting shows us, and that's just not what the facts seem to be. Les Wexner is also somebody who was named in the Epstein files many, many times. And again, without his money, Jeffrey Epstein would never have been able to commit the crimes, the sex trafficking crimes, at the scale that he did.
Back up just a second, because you said that they traveled together, and it is well known that Epstein rarely traveled without a woman or 2 or 3 with him. Did anyone ask Les Wexner whether that was the case when they traveled together, and the age of the women with whom could have been traveling with them?
Yes, I actually asked these questions. I asked Les Wexner whether or not he had gone to Epstein's Island, whether or not he'd been to his ranch, and I also asked about another property in Paris. He said that he had been to the island. He claimed that he'd only been to the island for 1 hour with his family, his wife Abigail, and his kids. And he mentioned that he'd also been to the ranch also for an hour. I also asked if he'd ever seen women there or girls who looked unusually young. He said no. And when I probed a little bit more to that question, he did at some point admit that there were women, but he assumed that they were women who worked for him in some, professional capacity. And that was the extent of my questions thus far. But I was really honed in on the travel pieces. And again, that in and of itself contradicts with an assertion that you don't have a personal relationship. It's just an outright lie. And I don't know why he's choosing to deny those facts. You can say, you can be honest about having a personal relationship with someone while still then saying, the base of his point, which is that he was conned by Jeffrey Epstein and manipulated by this master con artist. So it just doesn't quite make sense to me why he seems to be committed to denying this piece. He is under oath, so that's why this investigation and this deposition is so critical as part of our broader work, because all of this interview will be transcribed, and the answers, will be on the record, and we can hold him to account if he's found to have been lying.
Mm-hmm. So you've articulated a perplexing thing for you based on your questioning. Is there anything else that you heard him say that you find surprising or just rather incredible?
Yes. So there was another line of questioning around, he's actually connected to other scandals here in Ohio relating to Ohio State University. Folks have had questions about his knowledge of, those scandals and trafficking operations. So there's something that was found in that he, through Jeffrey Epstein, was paying a gynecologist at Ohio State University. The money would go through Epstein, but the source of the money was Les Wexner. Les Wexner responded to say that this gynecologist was actually working with his wife, even worked with his daughter. But these were large, large sums of money that Epstein would give to this gynecologist on a quarterly basis. Les Wexner claimed in his response to have no knowledge of that, to not know why the money was coming from him, to not know what the payments were being made for. And that's it. And of course, all of us kept reiterating the question, because how could it be that it's your money and you have no idea? And is that gynecologist, now the questions are around, were they being used, to service some of the children or the women that were being trafficked? So there is a lot to this. I mean, Wexner is named in the Epstein files more than almost anyone. And so he has a lot of knowledge, and we are really trying to make the case to him that if this is somebody with his name all over buildings here in Ohio. I mean, he is the richest man in the state, a longstanding philanthropist. He has an opportunity to gain some sort of credibility back by telling the truth, helping us find others who were part of this massive operation, who may have abused girls or boys, and help us get to the truth and get justice for these victims. And I truly urge him to do so.
Do you have a sense he's going to do that? Do you get any feeling like he wants to tell more than perhaps lawyers have told him to say?
I'm not sure. I mean, he indicated at one point that he wants to, and he's happy to provide any more information in writing. One of my colleagues made a very heartfelt plea to him in the room, because we've spent a lot of time with these survivors. And even with them, his name is who comes up the most when they tell us to follow the money. This is the money. Les Wexner provided Epstein with hundreds of millions of dollars, with homes, with planes, with yachts. I mean, the crimes would not have been possible without Wexner. But at the same time, he's clearly lying. He's clearly, saying no to questions that are really hard to deny for anybody who knows the facts of the case. But this is just the beginning of this investigation. This is a very important component, but these depositions will continue. We've also called upon the local community here to reach out to the Oversight Committee with any information that you may have. We've been getting a lot of folks reaching out to us just on an informal basis on social media, on email, saying that they dealt with trafficking here in Ohio, and even we're getting some whistleblower tips from people who worked at Les Wexner's companies. So I would urge people in the public to come forward, because the dam is breaking. We are going to get justice, and we will not allow this elite class of individuals who for far too long have thought that the rule of law does not apply to them to get away with this any longer.
I'm sure that is music to the ears of many, particularly those survivors. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us on a very cold day there in Ohio. Appreciate that.